Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Village of Cumberland's Council meeting of January 11th, 2021. And tonight, approval of the agenda, please.
So
Second. All in favor? Carried. Minutes of the meeting.
Move minute.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. We have no unfinished business. Correspondence, recommend that council receive the correspondence from the Comox Valley Regional District regarding the establishment of a regional park service.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Would somebody like to start the discussion on the letter?
I can start.
Yes.
Yeah, so we've talked a bit about it briefly. There's been discussions at the Regional District Board about starting a regional park service. Currently, they have an electoral areas park service that is for the areas and funded by the areas. But there's been a few different properties that have come to the attention of the board that might get looked at from a regional perspective and might need funding from a regional perspective. So there is an existing regional park service that was created back in the 70s, but it's been dormant. And one of the reasons that it was, we were told by staff, is because it was part of the broader Strathcona Regional District at the time, so included many more areas and municipalities than we have now in the Comox Valley Regional District. So there was a lot of disagreement about what parks should be part of that regional service and how they would be funded at that time. Because there were so many participants, I think that was a more difficult conversation. But now that we've split from Strathcona and I think things are more centralized, we have more integrated services and relations, I think, than we did back then. So I think it's a good time to revive this discussion. One of the things, though, is that at the time, back in the 70s, I guess Cumberland was still a little bit of a black sheep because we were the only municipality out of that regional district at the time that wasn't included in this service. So we would have to vote to be part of this service if that was what we wanted to do. It does talk about the process in this letter. And what needs to happen, but it also asks council if they want to do an expedited process, which would sort of skip the background research of looking at what other regional districts do and the different models, and in the name of being expeditious about more recent land purchases that I mentioned earlier. But that's up to council and the feedback from us to the regional district around the overall process, as well as timing the process.
Okay. I would just say one thing before, and I would certainly like to see Mark Harrison, the manager of Parks and Tech, come to a meeting and make a presentation to council. I think that would be really good. He could answer a lot of the questions for us that we would have concerns about. And that would not take a long time for that to happen. But I think it would be really good for us to be in on the ground and hear from him also of the direction that they are taking. And I will say, I was not here in the 70s, but they tried to get us involved in one at another time, and it just wasn't appropriate what they were asking us to support. So that we declined on that. That was when Mayor Bates was involved. with the regional district, and they made a presentation to Cumberland Council. And at that time, they voted no, not to participate. And yeah, so it'd be interesting to see what they come up with. And Councillor Brown, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'd love to do an expedited process, but I also think it's important for us to have, well, I don't remember exactly what was going to be included in the background study. I don't need to see what other people have done necessarily. I think this could be unique to the Valley, but I would like to see, just an overview of the existing regional parks and that sort of information, and what those, the parks that might be considered. And then I agree that we would want to comment and have input before we went to the service, establishing the service, so that we feel comfortable that it's looking at what we need it to look at and including what we want it to include. But yeah, I think we all use all our regional recreation areas, whether they're parks or not, and it's in our interest and our community's interest to make sure that they remain available to us. So if this is the route to get there, then let's do that.
Councillor Sullivan?
Yeah, I support this in principle. I know that historically, regionally, there's been challenges working together with the CVRD. So I'm a little wary about joining a regional service, but for something as important as parkland, I'm willing to look into that for sure.
Councillor Sproul, did I talk to you already?
No, that's okay. I'm really happy to see more joining together, or more working together between the regional district parks department and ours, for the sake of the many trails that weave through and all the railway lines through connecting all these parks. I just feel that the Village of Cumberland, with the help of organizations like Forest Society, has managed to put together a magnificent park system that hasn't cost so far a lot of money to the people of Cumberland. I'm concerned that if we start looking at supporting parks in other parts of the Comox Valley, that it might, I don't mean detract from ours, but I think we have our hands quite full with the parks that we have, and that we have been able to fund them. So far, we're able to pay. I don't know about the cost of things at the regional district. Sometimes they're a little bit priced more than we have. I don't know. That's just maybe supposition.
It sounds to me like everybody would like to have a presentation and look into this further. And I think that's a great way to start it. I will make sure, we need to make sure that when we do that, that there's a way of opting out also. Because you have to have that in there, the ability to opt out at one time. And I'm not saying that it's for us or for in the future, but everybody should have that ability in there somewhere. Yes.
Yeah, just a few things. To Councillor Sproul's point, it'll be based on a requisition similar to our other services, which is based on population, and I think there is a little bit of a trick to this, and that is that the strategic planning part doesn't come till after we have put through the bylaw and started the service. So the part that was a challenge before for the participants, which has to do with the objectives, priorities, targeted lands, that wouldn't come till after we've already said, yeah, we want to be part. So that is a challenge, and it would take a leap of faith by all participants. There's certainly lots to talk about still, but I know that CVRD staff are happy to come and make a presentation, and they have said as much, and I think that'd be a good idea for next meeting.
Okay, Councillor Sproul, do you have your hand up?
Just a question. Why is there a rush? I keep expedited, words like this. Is something going on that is time sensitive? I mean, why? after all these years of it being a sleeping service, it's coming at us from different directions. Not, I'm just curious what's inspired that.
Yeah, I think there's a number of what people think are currently parklands in the valley that aren't actually parklands. They're privately owned. And I think, there's a number of areas like that are sort of under threat by the private owners. So I think that's the reason that there's pressure now to have such a service.
Okay. Someone like to make the motion? There is one there provided.
That council directs staff to provide council with a report in regards to the request to expedite the process of establishing a regional park service and arrange for the Comox Valley Regional District staff to attend an upcoming council meeting.
Seconded.
Second, all in favor? Carried. Reports. The council received the development permit 3226 Sutton Road report dated December 21st, 2020.
Move receipt.
Second,
Second?
all in favor? Carried. Yes, we have Karen. You're going to be speaking on all the reports tonight.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Good evening to Mayor and Council. This report is follow-up to an earlier resolution you passed to refer to the APC. So the APC considered the application for infill development variance permit on 3226 Sutton Road at their December 14th meeting. The APC is recommending granting the permit upon review of the request. The applicant is meeting all the requirements of the permit. There's still a couple of them that they're working towards, which we included in the permit itself as being required prior to issuance. We sometimes do that when not everything has been identified. So the location of the EV plant on the site plan and the location of the rock pit, applicant is aware of both of those. So that would happen before the final issuance of the permit. So the request is for a recommendation by staff is for council to approve the residential infill permit to allow an ADU at 3226 Sutton Road.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I just have a question about the parking. So it looks like there's 3 stalls there that sort of make a U around the there are lovely big trees there.
Mhm.
And I know that in the report it says that parking can be permeable, but can it also be impermeable? And do we know whether they're planning to pave or whether it'll remain impermeable? It's quite a lot of additional impermeable area on the lot with those 3 spaces.
Yeah, our bylaw would allow an impermeable, just a gravel surface. It doesn't have to be paved. Milena wasn't able to be here today, but let me just see if I find a reference. I'm not sure that they were going to pave it. I believe they were going to gravel it.
You would think, I mean, it's cheaper, obviously, to do it that way as well as it remains permeable. So, okay. Thank you.
Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So on page 24, there's a map, and it says proposed sketch and location of rock pit, but I couldn't actually find the rock pit. Can you?
Yeah, that's correct. So that's why it's identified as something that has to be provided prior to issuance of the permit. So because that was missed for whatever reason, the stormwater management consultant missed putting it on the map. So they will have to identify where the rock pit would go.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now, when you scroll down to the permit itself, or scroll up, I suppose this is a schedule to the permit. So that's page. Just scrolling up here. Page 7. Page 16, hold on, no. Page 15.
Okay.
That's the actual draft permit. So under number 2B and C, those were the two items that we're requiring the applicant to identify the location on the site plan.
Okay, they just haven't done that yet.
Yeah, so it's part of the permit already. So the permit can stand as it is. They have to provide that before the permit is actually issued, and they could go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, someone like to make the motion?
Sure, I'll move that council approve the development permit 2020-04 DP for the property legally described as lot 14 DL 24, plan VIP 27906 3226 Sutton Road, substantially in compliance with the development permit dated December 21st, 2020.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Next, the council received the report development variance permit 3901 Bevan Road dated January 4th, 2021.
Proceed.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Mayor and council, this development variance permit relates to the Asiano development, which is also known as Tree Island Yogurt. You have seen a few of these coming through, and it's to facilitate a subdivision for that development. So the variance requests to vary the minimum lot size in the zoning bylaw for the I2 heavy industrial zone to a smaller lot size for one of the lots, and that's lot 3 in the attached plan. So it would vary it down to 6,490 square meters from the required 7,500 in the zoning bylaw. The number of lots stays the same, 6. What this does for the developers allows him to have a slightly larger lot for his yogurt plant, which is lot 1. So it shifts all the lot boundaries over a little bit on that top row of lots if you're on Schedule A, the subdivision plan. So that's essentially the request.
Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, the one comment was from the CVRD. It was talking about the lot size, potentially varying the density, which is not permitted by the Local Government Act. And could you talk a bit about that and the you guys said that you confirmed that it was okay?
Yeah, that's right. We did actually get legal advice on that. So because our zoning bylaw does not have a unit per hectare stipulation for in the I2 zone, we can do that. So yes, we did get legal advice on that, whether that we can actually do that. So density is measured in a number of different ways. It's unit per hectare, it's floor area ratio, or sometimes it is lot coverage, and sometimes it's how many lots you can actually achieve based on lot size and your minimum lot sizes. So in this case, we're okay to do this if a council wishes.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I think because the parcel size hasn't changed and it's the same number of lots, but it's fine. But it also, I think the just having a variety of sizes of those lots will help move potentially help move that development along and allow for a smaller operator to locate in one of those in the smaller lot. So I think it's great.
And
See no further hands up. Was there somebody going to say something there? No? Okay. Someone would like to make the motion?
I'll move that council approve the development variance permit dated January 4th, 2021 for lot 3, Shonen subdivision plan EPP 104047 for property described as section 34, township 10, Comox district plan 552H, except that part shown outlined in red on plan 21 RW, and that part in plan VIP 55123 and VIP 69987 3901 Bevan Road for the purposes of developing and servicing a 6-lot subdivision substantially in compliance with the permit presented in the staff report. and that council waive the requirement to hold a neighborhood public meeting for the development variance permit, since there's no neighbors.
Seconder, Councillor Sproul. All in favor? Carried. Next, that council received the report amendment to development variance permit 3901 Bevan Road dated December 19th, 2020. Motion to receive.
Motion to receive.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Carried.
All right, so this report follows, really is also connected to the previous one. And it actually hinges on your recommendation or the resolution you just made. So as a result of the variance to the lot size, the developer needs to update the variance permit, which was granted for the servicing at the site, to substitute the new lot plan to the development permit. Hold it, what? Okay, yeah, to the development variance permit, sorry. That was made for the servicing of the site. So you approved an earlier development variance permit to allow the developer to service the site through on-site waste, on-site
Septic
wastewater disposal system. So now that variance that you already granted, it has to be amended to insert the revised lot plan,
Okay.
which was presented in the report just ahead of this one.
Any other questions? Someone like, oh, Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, just to say that there is one neighbor, which is the landfill. So even though we're waiving the public meeting as we did in the last motion, I do hope we are getting reaching out and getting feedback from the landfill, our neighbor.
Yeah, no, thank you. Milena has been in discussions with the manager of planning at the CBRD to discuss his comment on the concern about the lot size. The previous report related to the previous report, but indirectly also related to this report, of course. So I know they've had discussions, and he's also could talk to Rob, manager of operations.
My apologies to the landfill. They were within the area. They were that close. So by all means, we should definitely consult with them.
So someone like to make the motion, please?
Okay, I'll make a motion that council receive the report amendment to development variance permit 3901 Bevan Road dated December 18th, 2020. The council approved development variance, permit amended 2019-07 DVP for the portion of the property described as Section 34, Township 10, Comox District, Plan 552H, except that part shown outlined in red on Plan 21RW and that part in Plan VIP 55123 and VIP 69987 3901 Bevan Road.
Seconder, all in favor? Congratulations, you're getting all the numbers right. There's a lot of them. Okay, that council received development variance permit 3268 5th Street report dated December 21st, 2020.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
And council, it's the evening of variances. This variance was before you at the end of last year and was referred to the Advisory Planning Commission for comment, which supported the application. And it's the variance would permit a subdivision at 3268 5th Street into 2 lots. Yeah, we have looked at this before, but the easiest to understand what's going on is probably to go to page 46, which summarizes the request. So the applicant is requesting a variance of 1.0 meters to the lot to be created, lot A on the site drawing on page 46. And then they're also requesting a variance to the lot coverage to increase the lot coverage to 56% from the permitted percent in I think it was 40%, sorry, in that zone. Must say above, yeah, 40%, that's right. So this is to allow him to retain that existing garage that's on the property, lot B, and use his workshop in that garage to construct a new home on lot A, which is newly created through subdivision. He is required a variance. We didn't find there's not a mechanism for him to just keep that garage temporarily, then tear it down once everything is finished. So the variance is the variance permit, the draft permit is written so that it only applies to the existing garage. So if he does tear the garage down or change the use of that site, then the variance no longer applies. So his long-term intent is possible. Well, he's saying he may tear down the garage, but really his long-term intent is to rebuild the garage and put an accessory dwelling unit on top once he's rebuilt it. So that would then have to adhere to the variance. To the regular setbacks. The variance would not apply. It's just applying to this particular building.
Any questions from council members? Councillor Brown?
Yeah, so thank you, Karen. I'm still confused though.
Yeah.
I understand that he was going to tear it down, and now it sounds like he wants to keep it. So if we allow the variances now, which would end up being 3 variances, because I understand we gave them a variance for the steps initially. Because they were over the property line or some such thing, over the easement. And then the interior and the lot coverage, which is considerable. And I tried to do the math, but I couldn't read the numbers on the map because it looks like a lot more than 56% lot coverage to me. Is that just some kind of optical illusion? So I feel like that's a lot of lot coverage. And then, which would be fine if the whole other lot was empty, but of course they're building a primary residence on there, which we don't have a plan for. And so I'm concerned that that's just a lot of density. And given that we are all about densifying our infill area, the downtown core, maybe that's fine. But I also was thinking while I was reading this, and given that we very often get applications for multiple variances, I'm wondering if there's a tool for us to ask for something in exchange. So yes, we'll give you 56%, because it's essentially we're giving them density. So can we trade that density for an artist in residence site if they want to build the ADU, or making sure that the rent of the ADU is affordable or some such thing? Is that, in your knowledge, is that a tool we have in our toolbox?
Part of a variance, generally, I haven't seen that being done. Yeah, it's more commonly used as a during a rezoning, and even then, even on a rezoning, it has to be voluntary by the developer to offer an amenity, unless you have actually a specific density bonus in the existing zone. I just to speak to this a little bit more, so he is trying to use his existing workshop to construct a new home, which that home would have to abide by the setbacks from lot A. The owner would know what he's living with, I suppose, the new owner of lot A, the garage being right next to it. So that helps, I think, because you're not imposing on a neighbor who is already there and already has a structure there. We didn't receive comments from any neighbors on the mail out. It is it does look like it might be more, but if you're adding up all the setbacks, And I know Milena double checked the numbers and came up with a very precise amount. So if you check on all the setbacks surrounding the buildings, it is what she identified there. So yeah, it doesn't look like it looks like more, but if you were to bunch all that into one corner, it would definitely that's the setback. That's the lot coverage that he's requiring.
Yeah, and I also understand that the neighbor behind them, to the south maybe, it also encroaches on their properties, so that's lowering the lot size maybe too. I don't know. It just looks crowded in there. If the neighbors don't mind.
Oh, you can see the shed is right up against the lot line.
Yeah.
The one neighbor, you can see that on the top there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, I just this is just a really long way to go around someone wanting to use that existing garage to build this house. And so I'm really applaud staff because as Karen mentioned, there is no process to make this easier. But it definitely yeah, I don't know. I'm happy that we finally got to this place. Just gonna create more housing right downtown. And the proprietor, he's gonna tear it down and then rebuild a new garage and not use that same footprint, as far as I know.
My question is, Karen, everybody has the best intentions when they start out, but we know that things pop up. So he's saying he's going to do this within a time frame of a number of years. What happens if he doesn't meet that timeline? Can he come in and request it be delayed, or that he has more time?
Right. Well, there's a time limit on the subdivision itself. And the variance, what did we, I think we made it subject to the subdivision. Well, you have to, it only applies if he's actually going to put a subdivision in there, obviously. Otherwise, there's actually no variance needed. So the permit states that. The expiry as if nothing happens within 2 years, but that's really alludes to the subdivision. Once the subdivision is done, then the required time period is being met and the variance applies. So where you saw has to, like I said, it just applies to the existing garage and workshop. So if he replaces that with a new garage, it is a very old building, so it's reasonable to assume he may within a certain number of years, but there's no time limit on this particular variance permit, by which time he tear down the garage and rebuild or add a,
I thought I read in there he was giving himself 3 years.
So that's his he's aiming to do it within his 3 years. Mm-hmm.
But if he doesn't do it, there's nothing we can do about it once we approve this.
The way it is written, not. So, I mean, you can, if you're concerned with the 3 years limit, that he does do it within the 3 years. Staff was not too concerned about, to be quite honest. I guess we're maybe not as uncomfortable with that amount of lot coverage. Because it's for garage, not a dwelling unit, and eventually the upgrade to a dwelling unit is probable. But if you want a variance, could include a timeline. It's not straightforward. It requires registration.
Oh, I wasn't concerned about us having a time frame. Essentially, I wanted to make sure that he would have the ability, if he's saying 3 years and something happens and he has to take an extra year, that we wouldn't shut him down in that process. That's where I was coming from.
Yeah, no, the variance doesn't include a time frame. Like the variance as presented does not include a time frame by which he has to do it.
Okay.
It's a complicated process.
Yes.
So, to do it that way, it would be quite complicated.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
And then to clarify, if he wanted to put an ADU on top of that, like couldn't put it on top of the existing building because it's quite old, he would then apply to build an ADU, and then we would look at what that looked like. He could put it in a different spot or do something completely different as well. Yes.
Yeah, once he no longer wants the garage and wants an ADU, he goes through the application process like anybody. He'd have to apply for an infill DP for that new ADU on top of a garage. So yeah, and then the variance would no longer apply. You'd have to meet the lot coverage and the required setbacks for the new building. Yeah.
Okay, good discussion. Any comments? Someone like to make the motion then?
Sure. I'll move the council approve the application for development variance permit 2020-09 DV for the property legally described as Lot 1, Block 21, DL 21, Plan VIP 522C, substantially compliant with permit dated December 3rd, 2020.
Second.
Seconded.
All in favor? Carried. Next, that the Heritage Protection Tools for Local Governments report dated December 18th, 2020 be received.
Receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Yeah, to Mayor and Council. So this report came forward to you in April 27 of 2020 for discussion at a committee of the whole meeting. And it was really, in response to a resolution that was made on February 24th, 2020, to present potential next steps for protection of areas with heritage statements of significance. So this report summarizes the different heritage protection tools that local governments have. And I'm not going to go over it one by one. I think you had a chance to look at the April meeting. And also, if you're referring it to Heritage Committee, it'll come back. So if there's questions in the meanwhile or anytime, you can ask me, of course. But I did provide a table of summarizing the different tools. And then one of the key items of the report is also to look towards those next steps, which was one of the requests in the resolution. So there was a number of next steps included in the report to Committee of the Whole on April 27th. And because this is now coming forward back to you for a resolution and referral to the Heritage Committee, I did provide some updates to those steps because it's been a while. So if you go to page 55, that's where the next steps start. One is to continue adding to the Community Heritage Register. That's an ongoing goal of the Heritage Committee, and we're working towards that and have a little bit of funding to try and achieve that this year to do a few statements of significance. The second one is new, and that's to develop a density bonus for the VCMU1 zone. And is really to explore this, and we'll present some options to council and to understand how perhaps through a density bonus, you could promote heritage protection, but also affordable housing. Density bonuses are usually often done for affordable housing. You have them in all your other IMU, in your residential multiple zones. You have a density bonus written into those, but not in the VCMU1, but that actually has quite a bit of density. So we thought that would be appropriate and good to explore. Number 3 is to create a brochure and initially just online, just to outline the tools, and we have a lot of the work done, so it's not too onerous. Number 4, contact the owners to encourage future heritage protection, just to inform them what the options are to the owners of downtown buildings. And then the 5th was to provide some training for Heritage Committee to review design. So it's quite a challenge when a proposal comes forward and is referred to the Heritage Committee. They're very knowledgeable people. At the same time, they would really appreciate to have a little bit more, a better understanding of how you evaluate design, architectural design. So we thought that might be good for, if of interest to them, so this would be presented to them for discussion. 6, we've already done a bit of that, or fortuitously, I guess it happened, I should say. We have now a heritage plan on the committee. And there's always opportunities to look for other members who add to the skill set on the committee, which is quite considerable, I should say. I'm getting to know them really well, and they have a lot of experience. Then the other 2 items is really longer term items and would be part of an OCP review because they really require some public scrutiny and input and feedback to understand the implications. One is to add a further heritage conservation area, potentially look at other areas that's identified in the heritage management plan. And also, I believe there's policy in the OCP, so it's just a follow up to that. Again, that is really part of an OCP review. And then just check in on the heritage design guidelines. When I do the Google Street View from 2012, I see a lot of improvement actually to the look of the buildings, which is suggests to me that the heritage alteration permit guidelines are actually working well. And developers have put some effort into designing with those in mind. Nonetheless, it's still good to check in if those values that are the features are valued about the downtown core are in fact preserved. So again, those last two items are really part of a bigger OCP review. So those are the key. There's the report and the key the initial steps that staff's scoped out that we would like to refer to the Heritage Committee with your support.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure there's comments here, so we'll start with Councillor Brown.
Hi, thank you. Yes, absolutely to numbers 1 through 8. Thank you. And also, I'm not sure what the process is for adding buildings to the community heritage register, but I see that the Masonic Hall is not there, and the big store is not there, and there's some distinctly. So I assume that there's a logic to how those are being added, or which priorities, which buildings are getting priority. Can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, for sure. And I should say I need to update the register because the big store did get its heritage. It was added to the register. You call Becky Thiessen, where the VIU student prepared a report. So that was done. So yeah, I need to update that.
Awesome.
And she also did the Co Beach. So yes, this is out of date. Thanks for catching that. The committee each year does review the buildings and structures or sites that they would like to add to the Community Heritage Register formally and prepare statements of significance for. And the discussion center is usually there's a number of criteria that they look at, and one is immediate threat. You want to identify the key features that deserve some form of protection or some form of replication is not a good word, but if a property is redeveloped, how do you commemorate those values? So that's what they look at threat. They look at which could include imminence of development. It could include maybe a key person not being in good health, and you really want to be able to interview them on the values of the building or site, or simply the building is not in great shape. So you at least want to have a record of it. So those are the things that they consider, and then there's of course capacity. So while we'd like to do way more than we're able to do each year, it's really hard to prioritize. In fact, our list is always, and if we can, we'll also add these ones. And unfortunately, last year, we had, because of partly of COVID, kind of threw a wrench into things. We didn't meet as much. We weren't able to get a VIU student to help us with some work. We didn't have funding set aside to match the Heritage Legacy Fund. So I think we're in better shape for 2021 to get a few done.
Awesome, thank you.
I'm going around, Councillor. So it's Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. We talked a while ago, Karen, about this is about number 2, the density bonuses, and you had mentioned something about possibly looking at reducing the amount of floors in the downtown core from 4 to 3, so that if we did allow for a 4th, we could leverage that for density bonusing. Just bringing that up, and I'd maybe have a conversation about that with council. I don't know if other members of council have heard of that, but do you have any comments about that?
Well, I think you have to, you have to be careful. You're not changing it to the point that you're reducing the available density now. However, and the way we look at floor density in the downtown core is floor area ratio. So it doesn't specifically state you can't have four, you know, you can only have 3 stories. It's just more, the calculation is based on how many units you can possibly fit into the floor area ratio that's permitted in downtown core. Your height limit right now does permit for 4 floors. So that's probably not a minor amendment or to the zoning bylaw, which would probably require a little bit of more consultation. But I think we can discuss this as part of the density bonusing, what the effect is when we explore that a little bit more, of what the effect is of a density bonus, you know, on the current density and the owners, and it doesn't have to necessarily reduce what they can do now. It's just what would it look like if they get additional ones, or additional ones that is, or a density bonus on the amount that's never been realized to date. So
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks. Thanks
Yeah.
for the support. I support these initiatives.
Councillor Sproul?
Yeah, I have read all this before, but every time I read it, I go, wow, there seem to be a lot of tools in the toolbox for preserving heritage, and that's reassuring. And where I was looking for, though, is what has been on many people's minds. How do we prevent demolition? And I'm just trying to figure, I know it's in here, but what we can do, because generally speaking, I always go, well, we can't compensate the person who's bought this property not to demolish whatever, to make, you know, so those areas, I'm sure it's in here, but I just wondered if Karen could just remind us what happens if somebody buys a heritage building and wishes to demolish it.
yeah, it's always really hard to see when that happens, especially if it's an iconic building. So it is limited in terms of local government ability to prevent demolition. The heritage alteration permit allows you to stay demolition for a certain period of time until you have a chance to do a review the building, potentially do a statement of significance, or have an assessment done, and then enter into discussions with the owner. But it's time limited. It's not. I think it's just 60 days. Oh, it might actually just be 30. You can also do a temporary protection order or bylaw, which then increases the time of year. I think it's up to 60 days that you can prevent demolition, to allow to enter into discussion with the owner. Say, look, if you protect some of the heritage values of the building, you know, we could enter into heritage revitalization agreement, which would potentially vary. Heritage revitalization agreements can vary zoning on a property. Required public hearing, however, but they can vary zoning. So you could vary density at that point. If there's room on the rest of the property, increase density, you could vary parking. So it just buys time to try and enter into discussions. I mean, when they first come in with a proposal, staff try to, you know, find ways to encourage owners to protect heritage. But then there's these formal tools that council can use. And then the only one to really prohibit it is a heritage designation bylaw. So generally, the owners are asked to enter voluntarily into heritage designation bylaw. And if they are not interested in doing that, then the municipality has to compensate them. So that is the trick for the loss in developability. Development opportunity is a better word. Yeah. So you're right. The actual preventing demolition is, the ability is limited and requires compensation if the owner is not on board.
Thank you, Karen.
Councillor Kettler?
Thanks, Mayor. And thanks, Karen, for bringing this back. I was happy to see that. I mean, we are using almost all the tools on page 54 already. And as you were saying, I think it has had benefit to the community and to our downtown core. I would like to see all the options that you went through for us, as far as the density bonusing, the brochure, contacting owners regarding heritage protection, the further training for our committees. I would like to see all those things, but I'm a little concerned about your time. On page 58, when you talk about the operational implications, you just state that, heritage planning is part of development services, which of course is true, but we know that development services is quite under the gun with the development pressure that we have right now. So I'm just wondering about your capacity to implement all those action items that we've discussed tonight.
So I did reach out to VIU again, and I'll be discussing this with the manager of operations and the CAO. So there's a possibility of having a couple of VIU students do some research for us. So one would be on the density bonus and the other one on statements of significance, which helped us greatly when Becky did that work. So that's looking promising. So, and those are the two top items there that we see. And so the other ones, the brochure, you're right, that takes a little bit of time to pull together. So it is a council strategic priority. We do weigh that with everything else that's going on, of course. I think I think we're getting, I'm confident about catching up a little bit again. Changes in staffing is we're getting over the hump, I guess. So, it's something we do want to work on. It's in Yorka's strategic plan. So they are overall fairly doable. Yeah, they do take time. So I didn't add a timeline.
Okay, thank you very much, Karen. Very well done. I was really pleased to read your updates on 1 through 8, and very supportive of adding more tools to our protection. I think it became very evident last year with the sale of the Cumberland Hotel, how important our heritage buildings are to the downtown core, and we are limited in what we can do. That's definitely, but maybe that's something that we should be taking to the ministry and giving us some more provincial tools to help us to protect these buildings, because once they're gone, they're gone. And we need, yes, the owner has the right, but they certainly are buying into a community that has certain things that attract them and to the community. So we need to really impress upon people how important that is to keep and retain that history. And maybe it's time we go to the ministry and ask them to help us in doing that. So, okay, so can we have a motion?
Move that council refer the heritage protection tools for local governments report dated December 18th, 2020 to the Heritage Committee for comment.
Seconded.
All in favor? Carried. Next, that council receive the Municipal Finance Authority financing for 2020 vehicle equipment purchase report.
Move receipt.
Seconder, Councillor Kettler, all in favor? Carried.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. So council approved in the 2020 budget, a $143,000 budget to replace the 1998 dump truck in our public works fleet. And so we do this through the MFA, the Municipal Finance Authority equipment financing program. And that's, we borrow through that up to a maximum of 5 years. So this report tonight is just asking council for approval for that borrowing and to understand the timing of the borrowing for the 2020 purchases, including the fire hall construction that this is a typical thing for projects that span over the year. The old year, the new year, we usually have to transfer from surplus to capture that borrowing that we can't get through MFA due to timing, and then we pay it back once we get the borrowing. So, but tonight I'm just asking for approval for you to, for us to borrow from the MFA for the $143,000 to be repaid over. Thank you.
Any questions? No, someone like to make the motion then?
I'll make
Go ahead.
Make a
Councillor
motion, council approve the short-term borrowing from the Municipal Finance Authority through the Equipment Financing Program up to $143,830 for the purchase of a 2020 dump truck and brine solution system for a 5-year term that must be repaid in 5 years.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Move that council receive the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Resolutions Report.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Council. It's the time of year where Council has the opportunity to consider what resolutions it would like to take to the regional AVICC and provincial UBCM conferences. Just for the viewers, I'll just say that this is the chance for local governments to lobby the province, and this is the process by which local governments across the province do this. So with tonight, we're just giving council members the opportunity to discuss what resolutions they'd like to bring forward to AVICC, and it gives us a bit of time to draft up those resolutions and bring them back to council later in February before the deadline. So I'll leave it to council to have this discussion.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure there's members of council that have already thought of what they would like to go. So Councillor Sproul, we'll start with you.
This goes round and around and around, the managed private forest land and how we can get some back. When I had more time on my hands and I used to hang out at the provincial archives in Victoria, I was researching Cumberland stuff, but I found so many newspaper clippings from the 50s, the 60s, people of BC saying to the government, get some of that land back. It was really cheap then. So, but now it all has to be bought, as we can see with the Forest Society. But there are various items that we've put forward already. The environmental values, does that mean that we actually, got it endorsed? But I'm thinking of something to do with what we're trying to do with the protecting the watersheds that Megan presented us with. I'm not sure exactly what my resolution would be, but a way to get the, so if you have ideas.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brown?
I have an idea that we could ask for funding to purchase, or that the province purchase those lands back and give them to the village, or even purchase them and have them as crown lands. Either way, I would be happy just to protect them from logging.
So does that include all the land on in Vancouver Island that has watersheds in it for every municipality, that we ask them to do everybody, or are we just asking for ourselves?
Yeah, I don't know, because we don't necessarily know the situation in other communities, what they've arranged themselves, right? So we could leave it at that for our community and then see what AVICC does with it, how it ends up at UBCM.
Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, I think it does have to have a broader focus. So we would have to be asking, for all Vancouver Island communities to protect watersheds, I guess. But maybe there could be sort of a range, a limitation on what we're talking about, riparian area of our water system, because that's specifically what we're looking at with our own.
Or we could address it by either private managed forest properties, but not everybody has private managed forests. Some have Crown, some have other forest companies that own land. It's not
So
always private managed forest.
Sorry. So what if we framed it as a natural asset acquisition? So we're looking for protection for watersheds as a natural asset. And so the areas that need protecting are those that support the healthy functioning of that watershed. And then that would depend on each community and each land base and all the other parameters.
I think so. We might have to do a little work on that. What do you think, Rachel?
I think any of these will require a bit of research, and background documents are required with the resolution. So I think if we get an idea of what council's looking for, we can bring back maybe a best bet for a resolution when we bring it back to council in February. So those are great ideas to start with. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Were there any other?
Yes, I'm going to go around the table.
Concern?
Councillor Kettler, did you have one?
So I know we just keep bringing up the same things, but so for the clean renewable energy, as I've said before, it's my hope that we would get funding to do micro hydro along with the number 2 dam repair that we already have to do. I think that funding for alternative energy is a province-wide initiative that we can continue to ask for. And BC Hydro stopped their funding program. Sorry, my dog. The standing offer program that they were offering, they no longer offer that. And I think it's really detrimental to our communities, especially small communities that want to lower carbon footprint and look at alternative energy. So it says that our last resolution regarding that was referred to UBCM executive, but I'm not sure where that landed. But if it didn't get to the province the way we had hoped, I would like to bring that up again.
Okay.
Could I ask Councillor Kettler if we could change the resolution slightly? Perhaps not. I think council asked for to reinstate the standing offer program, but perhaps a different funding program might work for that one.
Yeah, maybe just change the wording so that we're asking for funding for communities to fund alternative energy projects.
Okay.
So then not necessarily just micro hydro, could be solar or could be geothermal or whatever. Okay, awesome.
Okay.
I have more, so come back to me when
Okay. Councillor Sullivan?
I think the watershed protection's very important. I also don't think we should be watering this down with many more resolutions either. I think the strength is just having one or two that have a really lot of background on them. I don't know. We seem to not have very much luck or any with Flinro so far. So yeah, I'd just be concerned about getting lost with too many resolutions and beef up a couple of the ones that we really want to get ourselves behind. And the watershed, I think, for me is the most important one at this point. And I definitely support Councillor Kettler's initiatives with the renewable energy projects as well. So I think those two are great, and fully support that.
Okay, Councillor Brown?
So the other one I had was one that came forward through the regional district to UBCM last year, but it didn't get to the table. So I'd like to reframe it and try again. And it's to have farmers markets deemed an essential service in all states of emergency. So as you may know, farmers markets were declared an essential service as part of the food supply chain during COVID, but in previous so fire emergencies or flood emergencies, they were not. And there were opportunities across the province to have farmers markets play a role in providing food during local states of emergency. They are flexible and adaptable ways to get healthy food in communities when the grocery store is not available or blocked by some other emergency. So So I'd like to try that one again. And then the other one that Mayor Baird just brought up is the funding for heritage preservation or heritage preservation tools.
Yes, and I'll elaborate on that because I was going to do it after you spoke. Before the Heritage, BC Heritage had a pot of money, and they were a definite organization. They had staff. They did all kinds of things to help communities to protect their buildings, and they gave us resources and tools to do that. That's how we did our design guidelines for the downtown businesses. It's how we did many of the things that we did back then. And I know various groups have come forward, our municipalities have come forward, and it's come up a couple of times at UBCM, but not very often. I think this time we need to give it a push, and I will help do some background checking on it. I think we have to go at it slow. We can't go in and ask them to reinstate the whole program, because that would cost a huge amount of money. But if we can give them some tools that we need that would help us, I think that might be a start to opening up that discussion.
Awesome.
Anything else, Rachel? You're fine? Okay. So there's no motion or anything. It will all come back to council for review. Okay. Next, we have that council received the village office renovation report.
Move receipt.
Again.
All in favor? Carried. Yes.
Thank you, Your Worship. So before you have a report just in relation to the work that is underway for phase one of the office renovation. So what we are recommending is to complete that phase one. There's with the contractor on site, there is some work that could be done and have less impact actually on the organization if we can get that done. So what I've also noted in the report, so what council approved back in December there is the additional phase two. So there is another phase two for the office. We'll be coming back to council with the details relating to that in the process. So this is just in relation to the work that's underway to get the front office open. And also there's some upgrades relating to some increased storage in the back there that was authorized back in July, I believe it was. It's in the report in relation to council. So what we're looking for here is we're recommending that based on having the contractor on site is to sole source the remaining amount of the actual project there so that we could complete that in a timely fashion there. So happy to answer any questions.
I do post pictures for everybody to see what's going on inside. It's rather exciting, and but it is making a challenge for staff to know where to be and where to go because they're not being able to get to their regular office. So it is challenging times. Councillor, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just wondered if there's, I didn't see, or maybe I didn't absorb a timeline.
Right at this point in time, so we had part of this project, the carpet was laid today actually, and so we're expecting the office equipment to arrive on Wednesday, and so Wednesday, Thursday, the office equipment will be arriving, and then we'll be in the process of working towards finishing. There's some electrical. The front door needs a access, as well as there is a concrete pad that really we've been waiting for the weather. So the hope is to have it done middle of like in the next couple of weeks here, and the hope to be open definitely by the end of January. That's the goal. Really, we're waiting for the weather to cooperate so we can do that concrete accessibility pad at the front there. So the weather's been not bad lately, but with all the work that's in here right now, it can't really be done at the same time as contractors are coming and going. So,
Councillor Kettler, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I'm just confirming that we'd be sole sourcing the rest of phase one, and then phase 2 and 3 would be put up for tender as.
Correct, yeah. So the plan would be, we actually don't have all the detailed designs in the sense of layout for the phase 2. So that work still needs to be done. So this is just because we have this work ready to go and the economy of having the contractor on site here. So that phase 2 would go, we do some sort of tender process for the remaining work there. Yeah, correct.
Okay. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Brown?
Sorry, I forgot my question. I'm just curious about our social procurement and how sole sourcing impacts that. Is there still an opportunity for social procurement, or do we give that up by sole sourcing?
The social procurement, that's a good question. Actually, I don't have the answer to that, to be very honest. I don't know about the sole source. I have the policy here, but it should fit under the same parameters there. So there is a need on the original award. So I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't actually know the answer. Definitely from an RFP process, it is part of the process, but I don't have the answer in front of me here. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Someone like to make a motion?
I'll move that council authorize the sole sourcing of the contract for Village Hall Phase 1 renovation project to La Casse construction up to $83,819 plus tax as per section 5.9 V11 as per the Village of Cumberland Purchase Management Services policy.
Second, Councillor Sproul. All in favor? Carried. Next, recommend that council receive the remedial action requirements 2721 Derwent Avenue report. Councillor Sproul, Councillor Kettler, all in favor? Carried.
Okay. Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm going to have our bylaw enforcement officer give a little bit of a summary here, but just prior to that, just as noted on page 83, the purpose of the report is to present information to council on the hazardous conditions and nuisances at the property located at 2721 Derwent Avenue and seek council's direction to impose remedial action requirements order under Division 12 of Part 3 of the Community Charter. So I'll pass it over to our bylaw enforcement officer to provide an update there.
Good evening, Your Worship and council members. So the village has been receiving complaints regarding the property located at 2721 Derwent Avenue in regards to unsightliness, illegal buildings, and hazardous situations, as well as some other things. The village has been receiving unsightly complaints since about 2017. However, over the last approximate year, the frequency and magnitude of all the complaints has significantly increased. The state of the property has only diminished since 2017 and significantly within about the last approximate year. The village has tried many times to try to work with the owners and the tenants on these issues, all the issues. The village has sent multiple letters, emails to both the owners and the tenants. The village has also unfortunately served multiple tickets to the owners and tenants to encourage compliance, and unfortunately has not obtained any success with moving the matters forward or resolving them. The owner has never contacted the village when requested for meetings, and the tenants have refused meetings as well after asking multiple times for meetings to again discuss these situations and possible concluding actions to help relieve all the complaints that is happening. The village placed a stop work order in April onto a large structure that was being built. Since then, the tenants have completed and enclosed, well, not completed, but enclosed the structure, ignored the stop work orders. We have placed a do not occupy order on that structure as well. And they have continued to ignore that do not occupy order as well, despite notifications and that. As a result, lack of cooperation, communication, and the consistent infractions of bylaws and community charters, as I've outlined up above, we are requesting that remedial actions be granted and commence immediately to start resolving this situation at the property.
Okay,
Is there any questions?
we'll start with Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, I'm really actually happy to see this report. I've talked with several members of the community about this property. Recently, they have cleaned up the front yard, but I really think that that's just putting a Band-Aid on all this. And I fully support remedial action immediately.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, it's troubling for sure, seeing what's happening on that site. Thank you so much, James, for your work with them. I have a couple of things. One is in your report, you mentioned that restorative justice was not an option with these people. And can you just elaborate a little bit on that? And then I'm pretty sure there's other illegal activity going on there. And so have the RCMP been involved? And if so, have any charges been laid or any other action in that way? And then thirdly, have they paid any of their tickets? And assuming that they haven't, how will we recover the funds it's going to take us to clean up that property? And what if they just mess it up again? Like what?
Okay, so you touched upon several significant things there. I know RCMP have been involved with that property, but I don't believe it's within our scope of this and the community charter to be able to discuss that at this current point in time. So that's in its nutshell. The restorative justice, unfortunately, we've gotten no compliance on anything at this point in time. So we've tried it, as I said, multiple times. I've tried speaking. The one time I've come across the tenants before in the front yard, he didn't want to speak to me about anything. Again, we've asked for multiple meetings. They don't want to do anything. It's only when we're actually forcing them to do something that they sometimes do it. Again, I got to be careful to not stem into bylaw infractions because we have several bylaw infractions that are different from the community charter, and this report and remedial action is very specific for certain things. You're correct that if we went through this order, they could potentially mess it all up again. However, the process would be quite a bit more streamlined, not only because of the fact that we've already gone through the process now with doing this, but it also already have a precedent there. We could seek injunctions with the courts as well too for, I believe, for doing, and even those are limited in duration. So they don't only have a certain timeline of, say, usually it's 1 year, that you cannot do this, this, and this within 1 year. If you do, you're in contempt of court, which unfortunately, again, due to some different things, may not be a huge deterrent to them. So it's a matter of trying to move forward in what it is now and trying to improve the situation as it is now and move forward, and hopefully that put some things together and move forward with some of the different actions. I have a feeling I've missed a question or two of yours, so have I missed one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just how we recover the costs if they are not willing to pay.
Okay, so cost recovery comes into, it's outlined in the community charter as well too, that any costs that we incur would be billed back to the property owner. If he does not pay, it would go against, become part of the taxes. He doesn't pay, eventually we'd end up ultimately, unfortunately, seizing the property and selling it for same as taxes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Kettler.
Yeah, as James has stated, it's been a long-standing issue, and it's really unfortunate for the neighborhood to have a neighbor like this. I want to thank James for all the work he's done and building this file. If you look at the report, you know, there's just endless amounts of pictures and lists of items. It's quite a painstaking process, plus all the site visits and everything else that you have to do. It's very arduous, and I appreciate your efforts on that. Yeah, and obviously there hasn't been any effort to comply, and it's been many years. So I'm definitely in support of remedial action with this file. Thanks.
Councillor Sproul?
Yes, remedial action. We've seen these kind of long-standing cases before. Not too many. This is about the worst I've seen in 18 years, but the amount of time taken up by our employees, staff, and I'm satisfied that if it goes into the taxes in arrears and that it comes to us eventually, it will be resolved. But that's a long time for the neighborhood. So I hope that the RCMP will be helpful in moving it along a bit faster than what our method has to be.
Okay, thank you. James, is there anything about the environment? Because it looks like they're putting gas and oil and batteries and in close contact to the soil. Is that a concern, or is that something different than what we're dealing with now?
It does come back into section 74 of the community charter, I believe, with some hazardous products in that. It is in the report that I've supplied you, because there is a couple different caches of multiple large vehicle batteries. There's also was at the time of inspection a large acetylene gas cylinder that wasn't secured in that. So there is a section in there that does touch up on environmental in an indirect way as a hazardous situation.
So can we actually go after them to have somebody come in and test the property to find out if it's leaked down?
I'll be honest, I'm not sure at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. I guess that would be another step somewhere else along the way.
Yeah, this is one action that could be taken in conjunction with some other stuff on our own end through the village. But in this regard, there's very defined parameters for remedial actions.
Okay, and I want to thank you for your patience and your thoroughness of this report. I know it's not always easy, and I know I've received a number of phone calls and a number of emails concerning this property, and people are very compassionate and very upset with what has happened there. And I totally agree with them. This has gone on way too long, but there is a process that we as a municipality have to follow because we want it solved. And that's why we've been taking our time to make sure that we've done it right. So thank you very much for all your work.
You're welcome.
And so there is, under the recommendations.
Your worship,
Yes.
the recommendation is on the report on page 70. It's not included on the agenda. Thank you.
Yes, I see that. So we need somebody that would like to read that out so people know what we're going to be doing.
I'll go, I guess. Is the whereas? Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas the Council of the Village of Cumberland has the authority under Division 12 of Part 3 of the Community Charter to impose remedial action requirements in relation to hazardous or unsafe conditions and declared nuisances. And whereas Council has received the remedial action requirements 2721 Derwin Avenue report on January 11th, 2021 in the matter of the property described as Lot 10, Block 8, Nelson District, District Lot 21, Plan VIP 522 having a civic address of 2721 Derwin Avenue, Cumberland, the property to Darren Robertson, registered owner of the property, the owner, and to Travis Sane and Cheyenne Watson, occupier of the property, the occupier. Now, therefore, the mayor and council of the corporation of the Village of Cumberland, an open meeting assembled and pursuant to Division 12 of Part 3 of the Community Charter, hereby resolve that. Whoa, I have to read all this stuff? Oh, yeah. Here we go.
No, council considerations and declarations. I think that would do it if you included that. Would it not, Clayton? instead of reading that whole part out?
I guess it's only one more.
Okay,
All right. Council considers a declaration that council considers and declares that each of the following located upon the property are a nuisance and are so dilapidated or unclean as to be offensive to the community within the meaning of subsection 74, number 1, and number 2 of the community charter. Okay, this is the
Yeah,
stuff.
this is going to be, if you do it,
Yeah.
do it like that, this is going to be extensive. Because
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
actually 3 more sections. And
Yeah.
they're massive. You may want to remend
Yeah, your worship, the corporate officer just has a comment there. Thank you.
I think if council could just confirm the imposition of the remedial action requirements as set out in the report, following what Councillor Sullivan has already read, would be
okay.
sufficient.
Yes.
So would someone like to do that?
Yes, that we will take the remedial
Yes.
action.
Okay, seconder? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Good
Thank you,
job.
Your Worship and council members.
Thanks very much, James.
Thank
You,
you.
James.
Okay, next council reports. And I'm first, and I have something to say after my, not after my report, but when everybody's finished. Updates on meetings held for December 20th. I was did attend the task force working on shop local by law, local campaign meetings. And in those meetings, there was discussions of hiring Innovation Island. And as I had never met them before, I wanted to meet them before the task force brought them forward to the board meeting. And so I had a meeting with Graham Trucks, the executive director, and Janet Bonigoro, commercial business advisor, to discuss services that they provide from the point of view of the task force. And the discussion did come up about the newly formed BA. And we did discuss about possible things that they could do with them and for them. And at this meeting, our Kaylin Chambers was present, and he took them to the BA and introduced them. And my understanding, it was a very successful meeting that they had with each other. So if the task force it does end up hiring them to do some work for them, I think we have a very good relationship with them, and they will do the work that they would be doing for us. And the great part is they do it free of charge. So I'm looking forward to anything that they put forward. Had meeting with the newly elected Josie Osborne, MLA, the Honorable Minister of Municipal Affairs. And it was an interesting meeting because it involved all the mayors and chairs on Vancouver Island, but we were told in the beginning that we had 2 minutes to speak. 2 minutes does not take long. And you don't get quite everything in, but I did talk to her about the need for mental health in the village. And she pointed out that the mental health is needed throughout all of BC. In every municipality in BC, there's a requirement for more mental health services because they have not been able to keep up. And if you listen to the reports now on COVID, they are finding out that there really is a need in the communities for mental health. I have had a number of meetings with Island Health concerning this, and they are aware of the situation in Cumberland, but the Comox Valley has 4 mental health workers for the whole valley. And that's just not enough to service the people here. I had a local doctor that was willing to provide office space in Cumberland free of charge for this service. And Island Health is working to see if they can make that possible. And he's recommended, when this started COVID, he said 3 days a week, and I'm sure it's more than that now. And so I have a meeting with the new staff person on Island Health. His name is Max, and he is going to be setting up a meeting with me to talk about next steps in acquiring this service in Cumberland. So I'm looking forward to it. And I also got an update on the ACT program that would be coming to the Comox Valley in the last quarter of this year. So that is exciting news, as there was a feeling that we were not getting the services in the Comox Valley that should be provided. So that is very good news. I also talked to the Island Health on Friday about the vaccine and when it would be coming to Cumberland for our Cumberland Lodge. And he said probably not till March, because we've been so good and there hasn't been any outbreaks in the Cumberland Center. We are not a priority. And I can understand that. There's others on the island that are really in need of it. So that's something that we can look forward to. I did talk to the RCMP inspector, Mr. Mike Curvis, about moving an office into Cumberland for the RCMP. And he's actually quite excited about moving them here. He is willing to be in the old fire hall or wherever village staff can find a place for him to be, or the employees, the RCMP, and they would be here on a regular basis. And he's also looking at the bike patrol and other initiatives that they could start up here. Mostly I wanted to make sure that people could see them here and be aware that they're here. And if they have an office, then they have a presence and people can stop in and talk to them. I think it's time for that to happen. We actually don't have to start paying them until we reach the population of 5,000, but he was very willing to put officers here in the village. So that is really positive for us. I believe it will be, and I'm hoping that it helps with some of the traffic issues that we are having. I attended the Coastal Community Social Procurement Initiative meeting, and they're going along great. The Scale Collective, they're the staff people that work for the hub, and they are answering calls and having Zoom meetings from communities all across Canada on what's being done here on the island. And they've asked to join, and we said no as a group, because we want to make sure we're taking care of Vancouver Island and getting it done right here before we branch out. That was the decision, but at the meeting we decided to add Whistler, Pemberton, and Squamish to the process. They get phone calls on a regular basis from the universities that want to join in, school boards that want to join in, hospitals that want to join in. The list goes on of organizations that would love to join in. And our concern is that we could stretch too far and not be able to service everybody. We really need to make sure that the municipalities on Vancouver Island are taken care of. And I am going to be sitting on a subcommittee and working on setting the strategic priorities for the group. So I will keep you updated on that. And I have one other item, and that's the press release that was put out by CVEDS concerning Tourism Vancouver Island. They will be moving into the Info Center in Cumberland. And I wanted to clarify in the press release that we were not a member of CVEDS, and we wanted to be recognized as a community. And I thought it was better to get involved and let them know than to sit back and wait and see what happens. So I asked them to have a meeting with Kalen. He's already had 2 phone calls concerning in their discussions. And I told him one of the issues that we have is that with the biking community and the trails and the friction that's out there, and they have dealt with that many, many times, and they can help us through that. So I think that's very positive and very inviting. They're actually looking at hiring local people to work out of the Info Center to address some and help us through this transition of ours. And the other thing that I had was had many meetings with residents, and it's amazing the questions they want to know and the concerns that they have. And I hope I have eased some of their minds about what's happening. Just to let you know that in our meeting on January the 25th, the speed limit will be coming back on the table. And so with a report from staff for asking for clarification and further direction, if that's what we wish to do, to lower the traffic speed down to 30 kilometers within the village, and where exactly that would be. So those are just a number of things that I've been working on. So thank you. Next, Councillor Kettler.
Thanks, Mayor. And yeah, I'd just like to apologize to Mayor and Council for doing a full year report. I obviously misunderstood what the December report was supposed to be. We hadn't had an opportunity to talk about our appointments previous to that, so I thought it was sort of our chance to do a year-end wrap-up. But I won't talk too long on it. I just really did a point form report of what's been happening. The CVRD has obviously been quite busy. We built a new building and moved into it. We unveiled some new signage along with our KFN partners with Coast Salish, Aya Geotham Language at Seal Bay. We obviously opened the Comox Valley Regional Emergency Operations Center to deal with COVID-19. We provided nonprofits with funding for assistance with COVID during that time. We had to review all our services at the CVRD in light of what was happening with COVID to see sort of where we were at with employees and revenues, especially with the sports center. And that was brought back to the board, and some savings were found in some of our services as a result of that. We also created the Airshed Roundtable, and I think a lot of our residents would be interested in that. It doesn't just deal with wood smoke, it actually deals with the broader aspects of air quality in general in the valley. So looking forward to getting some work out of that committee. The mayor and myself were put on a economic recovery task force, and we've been working with CVEDS as the secretariat, trying to help the businesses and industries of Comox Valley deal with COVID. And then continued work on the Food Policy Council, the Liquid Waste Management Plan, where we're replacing conveyance of liquid waste throughout the valley, and the continued work on our new Comox Valley water treatment facility. COVID was really challenging for me. I had just taken on the chair of the regional district a couple of months before COVID hit, and so a lot happened really quickly. As I said, we had opened the Emergency Operations Center. I was made spokesperson of the Emergency Operations Center. I started having to do regular daily update calls, lots of outreach to elected officials, but our island health representatives, upper levels of government, many ministers, Emergency Management BC, Municipal Affairs, lots of weekly calls happening there. I was doing the regular public service announcements, videos, trying to help inform the public about what was happening at all our facilities, and again, working with the recovery task force, and and a lot of constituent meetings, which I didn't report on, but also involved a lot of site visits to different sites for different constituents. So it was a very, very busy year, quite stressful year, but here we are, 2021. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sproul.
Yes, apologies for not having a report. I had thought it was just the month of December or November, December. So the only thing that I attended was the community to community Zoom event with the Comox First Nations. Once again, a wonderful presentation on the history of all the beginnings of all the stories of the Comox band and others that have gathered there. But their concern is always with developers not consulting them. I mean, it's not really the reason for them having that meeting, I think, is to build relationship with all municipalities, the regional district, and to just generally get a wider knowledge base out there about what their concerns are with all their ancient sites. And they think that maybe local government could assist them in some of the work with dealing with developers. I'm not sure how, but anyway, it's just a way of keeping abreast of all their situations and providing psychological support if we can't provide physical support. Oh, the other thing is I missed going to the wetlands conference that was going on. I realized it was 3 events that went on, but Councillor Brown sent me the link to the whole thing and it was all recorded. So I don't know whether we can publish that. They have published it. I'm not sure. Was it community? I'm not sure how to find it, but I'm sure it'll be on our website. Anyway, it was very good. Thank you.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd just like to say a big thanks to Councillor Kettler for her crazy year. Just watching you go through all that, very impressive, and the entire region owes you a huge debt of gratitude. So thanks for that. The only major thing that happened to me in December was my Comox Strathcona Waste Management Board meeting. There's my report on it. Some highlights, I guess, were our delegation from Convertus Group, which is a circular waste BC from Nanaimo, and they're an organic waste processing. And their delegation was kind of going through their process, and they've got these big state-of-the-art composting tunnels and such. Some of the delegates were had a question sort of what the delegation was kind of about, so we're going to receive a staff report about that, just sort of how it relates to our new compost project in Campbell River, and so that's forthcoming. I think the biggest issue at the board meeting then for Cumberland was the statutory holiday closures, which was quite a little bit of a debacle that we've had to work through. I think coming out the other end right now, garbage has been figured out. A recycling might have a little bit of more to go, and the compost and such, but I think that that's getting worked out with staff. The compost project in Campbell River was awarded to Sperling Hansen, a solid waste engineering firm out of North Vancouver, and that's really great news. They've changed the design build to go for the design build bid to just a design build, and the construction is set for fall 2021, and the commissioning is planned for September 2022. So that's quite ambitious to have that facility completed by 2022, but everyone's pretty hopeful. There's a lot of improvements at the landfill site with the recycling depot improvements, and there's more upcoming, so that's nice, and it's working a little bit easier there now. And that's it. most of the highlights there. And yeah, I just had various conversations with members of the community about the different stuff going on and heritage and other things like that. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Mary. Yes, apologies. Rachel did tell me partway through the building of my report that it was supposed to be for December, but at that point I was almost finished, and I just couldn't stand to erase all the hours of work that I had gone through my calendar to track. So there's the snapshot, and I won't go through anything. I think the biggest thing, and I do want to thank both Councillor Kettler and for all her work at the regional district with the EOC and supporting the Food Policy Council. And Mayor Baird, thank you for your conversation with Tourism Vancouver Island. I think that will really, if they can support us through that work in Cumberland, that would be really helpful to our community. And happy to hear from Councillor Sullivan that you guys had a circular waste presentation, because I've attended several workshops on circular waste, and there's just so very much potential here for reducing the waste that goes into that landfill and extending the life of it, because they're very expensive to build, as we know, and very expensive to recover, as we know. So my biggest chunk of work by far was the Comox Valley Food Policy Council, which met multiple times a week, because I sat on 2 committees as well as the larger council, and we worked through supporting farmers and food box programs, and just ensuring that people were able to access healthy food, and that farmers were able to produce that healthy food during the pandemic. There were many, many layers to that work and complications with that work due to COVID. So that was the biggest thing. And currently, a lot of my time is going to the Comox Valley the Comox Valley substance use strategy. I sit on that working group, and I am quite passionate about finding a different way to deal with people who have trouble with substances, and doing education around substances in a different way, particularly with our youth. I don't think the DARE program works, and I think we need to move away from that type of education into more harm reduction. And so I'm happy to be contributing my time to that, and I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you very much. I really enjoyed reading all of your reports, and I was concerned about the year one, because we had a discussion in December about the reports, and that we would stick to the month of December. And my only concern was that in doing that, you didn't give the other 3 members of council the opportunity to put theirs forward. And that was disappointing, I will say. And so thank you very much for apologizing. I really appreciate it. And Councillor Kettler already knows how I feel about her and her role at the RD. And the work that she took on was huge, and the impact on her personal life also during that. It was not easy. So thank you very much. Okay, move along then to bylaws. The first one is council members make
I'll
the
move
motion.
that council adopt 2021 to 2025 financial plan bylaw number 1138, 2020.
Seconder. Councillor Brown, all in favor? Carried. Next, that council receive the revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw number 1143, 2021 report for information.
Move to proceed.
Councillor Sproul, Councillor Sullivan, all in favor? Carried.
Okay, I'll just be very brief here because council is used to seeing this bylaw every January. It is a requirement if the village would like to keep its line of credit open, which I do recommend, just on the off chance. We've actually never needed to use it, but it's a good idea to keep it. So you're allowed 75% of your revenues, which would be just over $5 million that we could be allowed to have as a line of credit, but we just keep it at $2 million. And so I'm just asking council to give first, second, and third reading of the bylaw tonight. Please.
Someone like to move that?
Okay.
I'll move that council give first, second, and third reading of the revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw number 1143, 2021.
Seconded.
All in favor? Carried.
Thank
Next, that council receive the second reading zoning amendment bylaw number 1133, 2020 report dated January 4th, 2021.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Mayor and council, so this is bringing back a bylaw that you saw earlier this year to amend the zoning bylaw number 1027. And the earlier report, which came to you for first reading at a time when we were not certain how we would host public hearings during COVID times, had a whole number of housekeeping amendments included in it, as well as a couple of policy items related to water bottling and urban beekeeping, which were related to previous council resolutions. So because the bylaws sat dormant for a little while, as also we had to process other bylaws and public hearings in the fall, we did include a couple more amendments for your consideration. So some of them are, again, housekeeping, and then there is one larger as policy implications related to parking. I'll just try to walk you through fairly briefly, and if you can ask questions, but the more housekeeping related ones are just a further amendment to change apartment to 3 units rather than 2. We felt that added confusion, as that also duplexes have 2 units. A definition added a residential unit, primarily for the purpose of adding that to the VCMU1 zone. And that just allows to, it's in keeping with the OCP policy that people can have not just apartment buildings, but smaller scale additions to the commercial uses. So it leaves a little bit more flexibility. The clearance, this is after discussion with the bylaw officer, there was some issues with the height of the fence that we permitted. It wasn't clear that there should be no fence or no visual interference in that triangle that's formed at the corner of a property. So that's another amendment. And we did follow your request of a resolution. So we are keeping the regulation that ADU shall not be located in a front yard. That was as per a resolution by you in June. Then there was just some other corrections that came up as you use the bylaw, you find some weird duplications of wording. So that cleans that up a little bit. Livestock, just hens are also chickens for sure, but there seemed to be a confusion by residents when they read that they only allowed keeping of chickens is only allowed on properties more larger than 0.4 hectares. So we adjusted that. This also came up with the previous discussion. Yes, we looked at it again. We had wanted to include specifically the 143 dwellings that are permitted for seniors in the zone that basically covers the Coal Valley Estates property. But the way it was presented, it was confusing. It looked like there was an additional 143 units, which is not the intent of the CDA. So this amendment suggests to take that back out. And so that deals kind of with the smaller stuff. I'm happy to explain, maybe you can permit me, the bigger one is the parking regulations. So I very much want to be able to have this bylaw progress. So but we did feel this addition was somewhat urgent. So we're seeing a lot of development, or we've seen 3 developments in the VCMU1 zone in the last 3 years since 2018, which added quite a bit of parking to a burden to that area of the downtown core by developers having the option to make use of the parking cash in lieu provision in the zoning bylaw. So currently the zoning bylaw permits developers to buy their way out of providing certain parking spaces and giving cash in lieu for the village then to improve parking elsewhere. So I looked at the what has recently come in. So if you look at table 2 on page 107, all familiar with these aren't really came in not so long ago, 2700 Dunsmuir. So, there was a cash in lieu option exercised for 7 of the required 16, the 27 Dunsmuir. There was 24 parking spaces was exercised for, the cash in lieu was exercised for that. Out of 31, and then on 2731 Dunsmuir, small development is just 1. So cumulatively, this adds quite a bit of a burden to the downtown core. And yes, we do want to do parking study. And believe me, once I start looking at this, it's a box, a Pandora's box. There's a lot of other things to be dealt with. I just pulled out what I felt was the most urgent one to look at for you this evening. And yes, there's other issues that are things that we really need to look at as part of a broader parking examination of parking in the downtown core and elsewhere in the village. But yeah, this was just, to me, seemed quite urgent given what's coming in. We're developing quite rapidly. Parking is getting displaced from the private property into the streets that can't really accommodate them. 32 lots is quite stalls is quite a bit. So I just took a look at what other municipalities are doing for comparison, and also just to give you a taste of how one can regulate parking. There's all sorts of different ways of doing that. What you cannot do is choose whether you want cash in lieu or not. So if you provide the option of cash in lieu, then the developer can choose. What you can do is not provide the option only for certain uses, like a commercial use, or provide the option only for a percentage of required parking for a use. So you could say, 50% of the required commercial parking spaces can be bought as cash in lieu if they can't be provided. Ladysmith, for example, does this for the commercial uses. One key thing that came out of that quick review was a lot of the 5 out of the 7 municipalities in the Mid-Island region are not providing a cash in lieu option for residential parking requirements in their downtown cores, specifically in their historic cores. Possibly for the same reasons that the village is looking at this now. It's difficult to provide that amount of parking on the commercial streets. It also displaces, commercial, like it's not, it displaces stalls that are used or needed by, the businesses downtown for their customers. So that's one of the ones that really struck me as being quite key and doing in the short term if council wishes to do that tonight. So that was an addition to the zoning bylaw the amendment to the amendment bylaw. Yes, planning is awesome. So so basically if you go further down to page 110 and you just look at table number 4, which shows that we also have cash in lieu provisions for specific special uses. So our proposal is just to increase by the same amount as that for regular parking stall, just to keep up, keep them relative to each other somewhat. We did I am proposing to delete the cash in lieu option for RV or tour bus. Probably doesn't apply to the downtown core anyways, but nonetheless, we could never find that kind of space if we got a cash in lieu amount for that. And I did try to calculate cash in lieu amounts, and it's a tricky enterprise, to be quite honest. And I think in the end, it's really more up to council whether you feel you can accommodate the additional parking spaces downtown or not. It's a bit of an exercise to find what is the right cash in lieu amount. If you have to purchase a property and put parking on, pave it, put parking on, line painting, that's huge. Then your parking stall is worth, 30,000 or something, or 24, 30,000, depending on the lot. And prices for lots keep increasing. If you just have to pave and you have space and you just need to repave your road and line paint, it can be quite a bit less. So the amounts, our amount is very low compared to anybody else. So I am proposing just to increase the regular amount where we do permit it for the commercial, if you agree with this approach, permit for the commercial uses. And then review this in more detail when we do a traffic and pedestrian study and as part of that parking study. Like I said, there's more to be done. So this is our initial suggestion for you to consider this evening. And I'm
Okay.
open to questions.
Who would like to start this discussion? Any questions? Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, is there a timeline on this fabled parking study that we're desperately needing as people keep buying up the properties on Dunsmuir?
This year. Isn't it?
That
This
is
is a
probably a
long year,
CAO question.
Clayton can answer that question.
Yes, Your Worship. So the plan is on January 25th Committee of the Whole. We'll be bringing the scope of our facilities and property project to council, just to make sure that we have all the criteria that council is looking for. So that'll be at the Committee of the Whole, and then we'll proceed after that with the RFP, and that would include the parking as a component of that. That's a recommendation to start that.
Okay, thank you.
Are you finished, Councillor? Oh, yeah, he is.
Yeah, I'll let someone else go.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
So I think I would be happy to get rid of the cash in lieu option at this point and look at it again after we do our parking study, but just to not allow any more cash in lieu, because where are we actually planning to put all those cars as it stands? So if the rest of council is amenable, I'm happy to move that. And I have another question about the bylaw as well.
Okay. Do you want to do it now, or do you want to wait till after, or there's more discussion to hear from people?
Yeah,
Councillor Kettler.
yeah.
Councillor Kettler.
Yeah, and I tend to agree, although it would obviously limit what will happen in the downtown significantly. But we do have many apartment buildings going in there already that this wouldn't apply to. So it could be a good bookend to all that development, but things like the big store, for example, if something were to go in there and they need parking, because they would, because it would be change of use, I'm sure. Then are we preventing that building from being used because we so desperately want it to be used? So yeah, sure, if staff could speak to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so first of all, just to quick respond to Vicky Brown's comment there. So just to clarify, the proposal is just to take out the parking cash in lieu option for residential uses in the VCMU1 zone, not commercial, right? So with respect to, what impact will it have? So owners can still apply for variance of the parking. But if you accept the variance request, you cannot ask for cash in lieu, right? So the cash in lieu option is written into the bylaw that zoning bylaw right now owners can make use of or not, but you cannot, if they can't meet the parking requirement, they apply for variance, you can't ask for cash in lieu after. hope that was clear. Hope I didn't confuse that more. So but they could still ask for variance if there's hardship, they can't meet the requirement, and it's a development that's supported by the village. You want to go go ahead, the variance can be approved. It can also be tied. The variance could be part of a larger development proposal. For example, if there's a heritage protection component, and the owners are interested in entering into heritage revitalization agreement, that agreement, as part of that agreement, we can vary things like parking. But again, you wouldn't necessarily be able to, you wouldn't get a cash in lieu component as part of that. So basically they can rely on the variance request. If there's heritage involved, it could be an incentive to enter into a heritage revitalization agreement. Yeah. I hope that answers your question, but so it's really the variance is then the only other way for developers to request a reduction in the parking requirement. They can't opt out by paying.
I would be concerned about the potential of some other properties in the village that people are looking at purchasing, and they're going with what we have now. And if they find out that we've put a stop on, because we all know it boils down to the parking as whether a project goes through or not. And I would really hate them to limit them because of that at this point. I'd have concerns of that happening. We all know there's parking issues and there's parking problems, but I'm not sure if that's the wisest way to go at this point. Yes, Councillor Brown?
I think, given the clarification that Karen's just provided, that those development would be attached to, say, in one of our heritage buildings, we could give them the variance that they need in order to proceed with the proposal. And so I think the only danger would be if we had another apartment building offering multiple suites that couldn't provide parking above ground. And right now we have 3 or 4 new apartment buildings coming. So I think putting a pause on this until we do our parking study and not allowing any more to go forward until we know better how we might handle that parking would be prudent. I don't think we'll lose anything that we don't, that can't necessarily wait.
So going back then to Clayton and your recommendation on when this study will be taking place, how long do you think this study will take?
It really depends on if the scope changes from what our estimates are. The facility and property review, which included the parking, we were looking at, I think it was about 3 to 4 months there. By the time come back, there'd be some consultation and it come back to council. So we probably would be looking summertime, like July. But again, that just comes down, if the scope somehow changes, then, you know, if it's lessened and we'll come to council, if it's just parking at this point in time, well, that certainly could speed it up. If it is the entire project with all the properties, that certainly does take a little bit more time. But we also could, and, you know, here in this conversation, we may be able to phase it in a little bit so that there's ability, if there's a need to move certain portions of it up quicker and have it more of a phased in approach. So that's an option.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sproul.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of stopping the parking in lieu, because we do acknowledge we have way too many, not so much now with COVID happening, but normally the growth downtown and the need for parking is really large. What we talked about doing with that cash in lieu money that's in a separate bank account was for fixing up the parking lot behind the museum as a municipal parking lot. So instead of it being a muddy field of potholes, which it is in the winter, it would have some kind of surface on it. Maybe we can't afford pavement, but something like that to even it all out, put a proper surface, no mud, and put lines in there. And I've seen it all through Europe, those tiny villages where they never had cars at one point. And so now with all the visitors coming, there's usually a municipal parking lot at the end of every main street. It's the only way that they can handle the crews of tourists. So I think we need to keep on. If we say we're not going to charge parking in lieu, then what about the people who've already paid that? They're going to ask for their money back. That would be discrimination. I don't know. But I think we have to stick to our guns. I was surprised that it was this much money in reality, the proposed, or what it was going to be 7,500 instead of 3,800. I'm not sure why there's such a difference between what we had, what made, I guess, Karen, were you involved in coming up with that figure? Like, what was it?
Yes, you know, the concern is right now we have, from the recent developments which are just getting built, we'll have 32 parking stalls that can't, for residential units, that cannot be accommodated on the site. They'll be have to fit somewhere if we assume that everyone has one car. If some of the larger units, they have 2 cars, it may actually be a little bit more. But yeah, maybe the micro units, they have less. So say it does end up being about 32, fair enough. You know, if we actually had to provide that parking, well, we should, I guess, in the long term, provide options for that parking. And we would have to purchase a lot, or we would have to pave the lot in the back. 3,800 is quite low for cash in lieu. When I worked on one of the developments, one of the architects said, "Oh, that's cheap." He might regret that now, but it is very low. So it doesn't actually allow the village to replace that spot. Barely. I mean, it would have to be a really good road condition, so I was just trying to illustrate. And like I said, it's hard to actually come up with a value because it depends on whether you have to purchase a lot, an additional lot, say at the other end of town, towards 6th Street or something. Actually, providing it is expensive. So yes, there's an impact on the owners, new owners. So the existing owners have been able to, pay the cash in lieu. So any new development with residential units, if this amendment was accepted, would not be able to exercise the cash in lieu option, would have to provide it on site, which means they may have to build underground parking, or they would have to reduce the number of residential units on the lot. They can also enter into they can apply for variance. That's the other option they have, to try and reduce the amount of parking that they have to provide. They could make an arrangement with another owner to provide parking on that lot, but then that would have to be a secure agreement or easement registered in favor of the village to secure that for the long term. So there's some options, as you wish, because to me, I felt I needed to look at that a little bit closer, and just because of the recent developments that add 32 spaces, it's starting to become difficult to imagine where any more would go. So.
Okay, we've got a number of you that got hands up. So Councillor Kettler, were you wanting to say anything more?
Yeah, I'm still just not quite sure where I'm at. I do want to increase the cost of parking for the commercial, as you suggested in the report. I'm just not sure about whether we basically stop apartments or residential from going into the VCM U1, which is what we're talking about. I'm not sure yet.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Brown. Yeah, I'll get to you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Brown.
Councillor Sullivan, go ahead. You had your hand up first.
No, you had yours up on.
Councillor Brown from the last time.
Okay.
And
So-
Councillor. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh.
I don't know who's going.
Yeah, Councillor Brown, you had your hand up long before he did. So that's what I saw.
So I don't see this as stopping at new apartment development at all. what I see it doing is giving us an opportunity to ask developers who really want to come here, as we've seen by the latest developments, what do I call it, binge in Cumberland. We are clearly a desirable community, and we need to start to look at ourselves that way and value what we have and what we offer, and not give it away for free, and not even give it away for a little bit or a lot, but to actually value our downtown core and the businesses that are there, and allow them to have access to out of town people, and allow people to come here from out of town and have somewhere to park. And those apartment buildings are more than welcome to build underground parking. And that's where the parking belongs. I do not want to see multiple parking lots in our downtown core. What a horrible use of our community space. Let's have parks, let's have buildings, let's have community spaces, not parking lots. So, and I also, while we may turn the parking lot behind the cultural center into a parking lot, which it already is, we've already got 32 residents, and the businesses that are using that, and the cultural center that's using that lot is full many days of the week already. So are we going to build a multi-story parking lot there, and where are we going to get that money from? So let's let the developers that want to come here put the parking in that serves their development. That's what's fair to our community. Our community should not be paying to subsidize parking for a developer that's making money off developing our buildings and our spaces in Cumberland. So, and this is a temporary fix to stop us from giving away anything more of value while we have this current growth spur. We've had a ton of growth in Cumberland. You can see by the graffiti on the walls that people are not terribly happy with it. So let's just slow down and allow it to slow down. Look at what we need to do to make sure that we're getting full value from the developers that are coming here, and getting the kind of development that we actually want in our village. I think this is really important. It's leverage for us.
Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, I completely agree with Councillor Brown. And then I think about buildings like the Ilo and stopping parking in lieu, or even the options will probably immediately stop someone from buying that and trying to rehabilitate it in some way. So yeah, like Councillor Kettler, I'm really not sure where I sit with this, and I go back to the parking study, which is going to inform this in a very significant way. So I don't know what the answer is either. If we're going to go with parking in lieu, we need to charge way more. As Councillor Brown says, we can't be giving away our assets like that. But in the same regard, we need housing for people. So yeah, I don't know. Parking study, please.
Councillor Brown.
So we've just heard from both Karen and Clayton. Clayton has given us a 4-month turnaround on the parking study. It would be done by the summer. So if we wanted to change and bring back parking in lieu at that time, we could consider that then. That's only a 4-month pause. Should a development come for one of our very important heritage buildings in the village, we can now offer a variance on parking as a tool for them to preserve the building. We can offer that as a negotiating tool. Karen's just explained that to us. So this doesn't put our heritage.
That variance didn't involve money afterwards. That was just like, there was no option after that.
That was my point. If we are, as you said, looking at saying to developers, this is the value of our community, we're giving that value away if we just allow them to have variances from this point forward and not have cash in lieu. So that's my concern.
That's mine too. Karen, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just one quick illustration. I know, I spent a bit of time wrapping my head around this too. So I understand the hesitations. I did experiment with different scenarios, and really whatever I hit upon is it's really hard to accommodate. But if you want to have time to think about this, I understand. But to illustrate, for example, the Ilo, I mean, a hypothetical example, if someone bought the Ilo and the lot next door and wanted to develop, restore the Ilo and develop next door, whatever it is, a residential use. So the Ilo, it's it's more economical for the developer to tear down the Ilo and put apartment buildings on the Ilo and sell them and turn them into condominiums and sell them, or even rent them for long-term investment purposes. So there's no particular incentive right now to preserve the Ilo as it is. It's probably more profitable to tear it down and develop the entire lot. So if you the parking, not having an option to provide cash in lieu for residential use means that it might be more attractive to keep the Ilo. Parking cash in lieu would be available for commercial uses under this proposal recommended amendment for the Ilo. If the Ilo retains the current use, there's no parking requirement. If it's some kind of public assembly, a theater, or type use, there's no parking requirement. If they want to enter into a revitalization agreement with the village to keep the Ilo but develop the residential component on the lot next door, part of that agreement could reduce the parking requirement on the lot next door. So you do have options. They're just quite different, I think, from what there is now. Right now, the option is really the developers. They can pay so that they do not have to provide parking on site. But yeah, I appreciate this is a complex issue. And I also did include table 4, just the hypothetical effect of proposed amendments, of the proposed amendment to the parking. So, if a lot of the buildings may not achieve the same amount of units as you have on 2727 Dunsmuir, which has the very small units, the micro units. So there may be less of a parking cash in lieu. You would not gain as much, and the developer would not displace as many parking spaces off the site. So the variances that might be applied for would possibly not be that high. But I suppose you would have the ability as a council to not grant a variance, or just grant a variance for a certain number of spaces. You still have options. That's all I'm trying to say. But I know it's not an easy discussion. I had a fair bit of time to think about it over the Christmas holidays. Well, can't help but think about planning. But yeah, so. But you do have options, even if you deny the parking cash in lieu option, is what I'm trying to say.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify that should we have a brilliant application for an apartment building come forward, we could offer the variance in trade for perhaps affordable housing or artisan residence or something like that.
So that is part of that heritage report that was before you earlier this evening. Discussed the density, exploring a density bonus. So you could include a density bonus in the VCMU 1 zone, which really is quite common in most downtown cores. We don't have it. That would allow additional density or a certain proportion of floor area ratio to be increased to if they provide a certain number of units at below market rent, or provide them to a nonprofit to manage. So those calculations are tricky too, so they require a little bit of looking into, but that's the density bonus provision would help you do that.
Would it be possible that we table this until the next meeting? For if people are concerned and they want to investigate some more? Because that is an option that we can do instead of making it tonight.
You can also just pass the bylaw, bring the bylaw forward as amended, not without the parking amendments. That's another option. Yeah, as you wish. Yeah.
Okay, what is your pleasure? Nobody jumping up. Yes, Clayton.
Just in relation to the discussion tonight, I want to just mention this certainly adds a little bit of a different perspective on the parking plan that we were originally looking at. I'm going to be honest, like this is good for us to hear this conversation, because this isn't exactly what I've spoken to a couple of consultants about what this might look like, and it was about looking at properties, looking at maximizing space, where space is best to accommodate it. So this goes a little deeper if this is the way that council wants to go. When we bring the report back, we'll certainly bring back what we heard tonight, but also the other options. But it's the actual parking piece that we were looking at was more of a property base, not as a development piece there. So it's good to have this conversation prior to the next meeting there. So.
Okay. So Councillor Brown?
Yeah, so I'll move that council remove the option for cash in lieu for residential parking in the VCMU1 zone until that's it.
So your seconder? Doesn't look like it. So what are our options that we can, it's going to public hearing anyway, whatever we decide.
Well, I agree with all the other amendments of the bylaw, so I'd like to be able to pass that, but I would like to have this come back, the parking issue, to the next meeting, if we could do that. Is that possible?
Yes.
I feel the
Yes.
same way.
Yeah, I see. So do I. I think I don't want to be forced into a decision. I want to be able to feel good about the decision that I make. And right now, I don't feel that I can honestly make a decision one way or the other. Okay.
Okay. I have something else that I wanted to ask about the bylaw. It's not about parking.
Okay.
So we, at one of the committee of the wholes, I asked Ken, and I'm not sure it got passed on to you, Karen. There is in our bylaw, people are allowed to keep hens, but they are not allowed to sell the eggs. And that seems inconsistent with our food security goal, and also just with the bylaw. Why are we allowing people to have hens if they can't unload the eggs on their neighbors? So is it possible to bring that back before third reading? Do we need that in it right now? Do you want me to try and make some kind of motion, or?
Yeah, I would have to look at the language. You have to be so careful, right? It's tricky to amend a bylaw on the spot, because you might have unintended sort of side effects. I would really have to look at that section and make sure it applies where it needs to apply. So,
well, if it's going to be tabled to the next meeting, wouldn't that give you ample opportunity to look on that?
Yeah, for
also?
sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would somebody like to make a motion to table till the next meeting? And once you table it, you don't get to discuss it any further.
I'll move that we table the second reading. No, do I need to? No, I just need to table it, right? Not read any of the stuff. Okay. That we table second reading of the zoning amendment number 1133/2020 and bring it forward to our next council meeting.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Sproul, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Next, no new business, no notice, motions, and announcements. Question period. Please send questions by email to info@cumberland.ca and using subject line question period, and we will wait to see if anybody out there has any questions. I'm sure. Corporate Officer?
Hi, Mayor Baird. I just thought thought I should mention that we do have a Advisory Planning Commission meeting that we didn't get onto the agenda. It's this Thursday, the 14th of January at 4 p.m. And that will be by video conference or by phone. So people can register to attend by emailing planning@cumberland.ca or calling into the office at 336-2291.
Thank you very much. Anything else?
Nothing yet. We should probably wait a few more moments.
Did we also talk about, I'm not sure if we actually have it or not, the homeless and affordable housing meeting on Wednesday, the 20th?
I don't have confirmation of that. We'd have to check with Karen.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. We did get quorum for that meeting, so that is happening. Yeah.
Okay.
At what time?
9:30.
And
Yeah.
is that by Zoom also?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, did everybody have a nice New Year's? Mine was very, very quiet.
Very mellow.
Yes. Yes. It was different. But I will say that I really enjoyed the bikes, the light up of the bikes. That was
So fun.
amazing. Yes, I'm sure it was. We seemed to be where they met, a lot of them, because of course everybody wanted to see both neighbors on both sides of us and all the lights. But the kids that were involved, it was amazing to see.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
That would be pretty cool if when COVID ends, when everyone's all together doing that, for sure.
Yes.
We're going to do it again this year.
We'd be our little Portland.
What I'd love to see them do, maybe we'll get Hydro to put all the lights out and they can come down Kendall in the dark.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we definitely talked about doing it next year. So
Good, good.
in the plan.
There are no questions coming in.
Okay, so motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And we're going into a closed meeting, please. There's on the end of the agenda, there's a motion.
I'll move that. There we go. I'll move that council close and adjourn the meeting to the public pursuant to Section 90 of the Community Charter to consider the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. Information that is prohibited or information that, if it were presented in a document, would be prohibited from disclosure under Section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Second, all in favor? Closed. And adjournment of closed portion. Oh, we haven't got there yet. We have to do it. I looked at the time and saw what time it was. We're running a little later tonight than usual, but that's all good. That's all good. Okay.